Good evening, councillors, and welcome to this evening's extraordinary council meeting, which has been convened as a special meeting. The report for this meeting has been published at short notice and has not been open for inspection by members of the public for at least 5 clear days before this meeting. In my opinion as Lord Mayor, there are special circumstances as to why the item should be considered at this meeting as a matter of urgency. The government originally intended to publish the English devolution white paper in November 2024. However, it was not published until the 16th of December last year. In the letter addressed to all tier and two-tier councils and neighbouring unitary authorities dated the 16th of December 2024, the Minister of State for Local Government and English Devolution, in referring to the English Devolution White Paper and the Government's Manifesto pledge to transfer power out of Westminster through devolution and to fix the foundations of local government, set out the proposal to postpone the local government elections scheduled for May 2025, in order to help manage the demands imposed on those authorities keen to proceed with devolution. More recently, in their report dated the 8th of January 2025, Devon County Council have requested that the county council elections scheduled for May 2025 be postponed. On this basis, I consider that there are special circumstances which are that the deadline imposed by the Minister of State on Friday the 10th of January 2025 means that these issues need to be considered and determined by this council as a matter of urgency relating to whether submissions should be made to the Minister of State expressing this council's intentions as set out in the report before us. If this council's intentions are not submitted to the Minister of State by Friday the 10th of January 2025, then its proposals could be compromised. Thank you, members. Before we formally commence this evening's business, can I give a few housekeeping rules? Please remain focused on the topic being discussed during the debate and avoid repeating points which have already been made. Please avoid interrupting other councillors and respect the position of the Lord Mayor. During the debate, please indicate by show of hands and I will then call you as appropriate. Please also remember questions and responses are given without debate. Please can members rise on any point of order which relates to an alleged breach of standing orders or statutory provision and specify which standing order or statutory provision are considered to have been broken. And finally, any personal explanation by a member must be confined to some part of a former speech which appears to have misinterpreted, which appeared to have been misunderstood in the debate. I'm very hopeful we'll have a healthy debate this evening and a friendly one, so please do be civil to each other. I will now move on to item 1 on the agenda, which is regards to declarations of interest. If any members have any disclosable pecuniary interests that relate to business on the agenda and have not already been included in the registry of interests, to declare them before any discussion takes place on this item. Just like to remind those members. To this end, I would also like to state that Councillor Marina Asassin, as a member of the Devon County Council, has spoken to the monitoring officer, and the monitoring officer has granted Councillor Asassin a dispensation to take part in this evening's meeting and vote upon it and the recommendations set out in the report. There is no need to exclude members of the public or press from the meeting this evening. That's agenda item 2. So I will now move on to the substantive agenda item, which is agenda item 3, which relates to the Council's report, initial response to the English devolution white paper. Councillor Bionic, I understand that you will propose this, and then the Chief Executive will then present the report. Councillor Bionic.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On this occasion, I'll read the recommendation. I think that's important. The recommendations are that this Council agrees to support the submission of a letter of intent to Government by the 10th of January 2025, which indicates this Council's opposition to any future proposal for one unitary council for Devon and expresses Exeter's intention to submit interim plans for a unitary status for Exeter once we receive the invitation from Government. 2. To support the work in other neighbouring authorities to bring forward a mayoral strategic authority which may cover the areas of Devon and Cornwall with a unitary Exeter as a constituent member. Council also notes that the geography of a proposed unitary council for Exeter will be set out in the interim plan to be submitted to Government in March 2025 after due consideration and agreement by Council. That the leader of the Council will work collaboratively with leaders of the other political groups on the Council as plans develop ahead of proposals being brought formally to members. This Council will also work collaboratively as much as possible with other local councils on the development of proposals going forward in the interests of Exeter and Devon as a whole. I move, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do you have a seconder?
I second, Lord Mayor.
Thank you. I will now ask the Chief Exec to present the report.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. On the 16th of December 2024, the Government published the English Devolution White Paper. This set out the Government's ambitious plans to transfer power out of Westminster through devolution and to change the structure of local government in 2-tier areas. The 4 areas addressed in the White Paper, Lord Mayor, are devolution, local government reorganisation, the Government's intention to reform local audit and rebuild the wider assurance and early warning system for local government, and finally, the intention to develop a mandatory code of conduct for councillors to ensure consistency and establish a higher minimum standard across all local authorities, as well as several measures intended to support and develop elected members. For the purpose of this evening, Lord Mayor, we'll be focusing on devolution and local government reorganisation. On devolution, Lord Mayor, a new framework is being introduced. All combined authorities will be referred to as strategic authorities, of which there will be 3 types. The first is foundation strategic authorities, which cover non-mayoral combined authorities. Level 2 county combined authorities, which of course is the current arrangement locally with the Devon and Torbay County Combined Authority, or any local authorities designated as a strategic authority without a mayor. The second type, Lord Mayor, are mayoral strategic authorities, such as the Greater London Authority, mayoral combined authorities, sometimes referred to as MCAs, and mayoral combined county authorities. Finally, there are the established mayoral strategic authorities, which are any mayoral strategic authorities that meet specific criteria, having had a directly elected mayor for at least 18 months. Initially, these will be the North East, South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, West Midlands, Greater Manchester, and Liverpool City Region strategic authorities. The White Paper restates government's ambition that all areas of the country will ultimately have mayoral strategic authorities. In two-tier areas, government will only establish CCAs for an interim period. The Secretary of State will be given the power to create a strategic authority by ministerial directive where local consensus cannot be achieved. Moving on to local government reorganisation, Lord Mayor. The government has confirmed that all councils in the 21 two-tier areas will be expected to reorganise over this Parliament and the next. The government intends reorganisation to happen in a phased approach, with the first unitary councils expected before the end of this Parliament. The government has set an expectation that new unitary councils should be based on a population size of at least 500,000, but has indicated it will consider smaller unitary councils on an exceptional basis, where there is evidence that this would make sense for a local area. This point has been re-emphasised a number of times in briefings by MHCLG. The government has indicated that it will prioritise areas for reorganisation where this reorganisation can unlock devolution or deepen the existing devolution arrangements. Lord Mayor, we expect the Minister to formally invite unitary proposals later this month, asking for interim plans to be submitted in March 2025. The timescale for the submission of final bids is expected to be set out in this invitation, as well as final confirmation of the timescale for new unitary councils to come into being. This timescale is likely to be impacted by the government's decision around those areas applying to cancel their local elections in May in order to progress the deepening of devolution at pace. It has been recognised that for some areas, the timing of elections will affect their planning for devolution. In response to this, the government is minded to lay secondary legislation to postpone local council elections from May 2025 to May 2026. This will only happen where it is demonstrated that it will help an area to deliver both reorganisation and devolution within the most ambitious timeframe. In order to lay the relevant legislation to postpone elections, the Minister has asked upper-tier councils to submit their request to postpone elections on or before Friday the 10th of January, or tomorrow. The request must set out how postponing the election would enable the council to make progress with reorganisation and devolution as quickly as possible. As members will be aware, until the announcement in the White Paper, this council has been working with Devon County Council, Torbay Council and other Devon District Councils to support work to create a Devon and Torbay Combined County Authority. Following the publication of the White Paper, Devon County Council has decided that they intend to apply to the government to postpone their elections due in May in order to develop plans for devolution and local government reorganisation. Lord Mayor, turning to Exeter City Council's response to the issue of devolution and local government reorganisation. The proposal before members this evening is that members agree that Exeter is committed to ensuring that any proposals to reorganise local government and devolve powers to local areas is done in service to the interest of the people of the City of Exeter and the wider Devon area, and that we will work collaboratively with our communities and key stakeholders in the city, as well as with the other Devon councils, to develop proposals that reflect a positive outcome both for the city and the county as a whole. The council is aware that local discussions about the creation of a unitary Devon authority have taken place. It's recommended that this council indicates that members do not believe that a single unitary council covering the current Devon County Council administrative boundary would provide the best outcome for the people and the City of Exeter or the wider region, believing that as much as possible, local decisions should be made locally. It is proposed, Lord Mayor, excuse me, it is proposed, Lord Mayor, that when the government invites unitary proposals later this month, Exeter City Council submits plans for unitary Exeter Council. We consider that unitary status would enable Exeter to better coordinate public service delivery, drive regeneration and economic growth, and strengthen community leadership and identity. Although we will await the criteria from government against which bids for unitary status will be assessed, members may recall that proposals for unitary council for Exeter were agreed by the government of the time in 2010, with a statutory instrument laid in Parliament for the creation of the new unitary council for Exeter. This was subsequently repealed by the new coalition government in 2010. Lord Mayor, subject to the agreement of members this evening, the Council will send a letter of intent to the Minister, expressing our intention to submit plans for unitary Exeter within a potential Devon and Cornwall mayoral strategic authority. As part of this process, there will be opportunities for the Council to proactively engage with neighbouring authorities and the County Council to demonstrate a joined-up strategy to articulate the clear benefits of working together as a cohesive area to address the strategic opportunities and challenges offered by the White Paper. The letter of intent will set out the Council's significant achievements to date and the opportunities provided by unitary status for enhancing the city's status as a regional economic driver that will drive the industrial strategy in Devon to generate growth and more effectively connect with citizens and communities. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much. I will now move to the debate. My intention is that we'll have a debate. Any questions that are raised during the debate will be collated and then answered at the end of the debate, if it's appropriate, by the Chief Executive or by the leader dependent on the nature of those questions. So, Leader.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'd like to thank the Chief Executive for that very informative and explanatory situation on where we are as a City Council. We also had when I say private for councillors, an information last night which was very important, much more detail on what is happening. And I welcome the debate which is about to come, Lord Mayor, which is very, very important. Lord Mayor, I want to address the political why that we are doing this. The Chief Executive in her summation has made it clear that devolution was on the cards for Exeter some 15, 16 years ago. And to be brutally honest, Lord Mayor, we have been in the doldrums ever since that was denied Exeter at that time for political reasons. I'm hoping politics will not be a part of this decision going forward. I'm hoping that we will build a case which says Exeter should be a unitary authority with geography to be agreed. Very important for the city, in my view, and those people who live close to the city and want to be part of the city, its functions and its future. So why, Lord Mayor? Our achievements as a district council have been substantial, and as a unitary authority we could enhance the city's status as a regional economic driver. Adopting new governance arrangements will reflect the vitality and ambition of the city and its partners. We are one of the fastest growing cities in the UK, which has seen an 8% growth in new businesses, with over 5,000 businesses registered for rates. A 3% growth in jobs, 10% growth in population, and in terms of economic productivity, despite its challenges, the Exeter gross value added is £5.2 billion. Exeter has an estimated population of 131,000 people and is at the heart of the travel to work area of over nearly 500,000 residents, with about 35,000 people commuting into Exeter on a daily basis, together with all the problems that brings us, by the way. Exeter has an international airport, not in the city, I accept that. 2 railway routes to London, Paddington and Waterloo, major routes by road, the M5 to Bristol, and even the A30 down to Plymouth. 3 park and ride schemes and joined up cycle routes within the city. Exeter and Cranbrook are one of the only 12 places in England to be awarded a pilot status by Sport England to tackle inactivity in communities and to trailblaze new ways of getting people active for life. Following the original Sport England award of £4.7 million in June 2019, a further £1.8 million was awarded to continue delivery of that programme in line with the Sport England strategy. Uniting the movement to March 2025, due to the success of the programme and the clear evidence to demonstrate the positive impact that this work has had on communities. Sport England has confirmed that they will continue to support the work for a further 3 years. As a council, Lord Mayor, we have a track record of a willing and supportive partner in the city, the county and wider South West. Prior to COVID-19, Exeter was performing well, relative to other cities in the UK against several indicators such as employment rates, job vacancies, GDPR per worker, and patent applications. There is also emerging evidence that the city has so far proved to be one of the most resilient parts of the country in responding to the economic shock that has followed the pandemic. Among UK cities, only York, Labour controlled by the way, has a lower unemployment claimant count than Exeter. The city is also an important retail location, serving a catchment area that extends well beyond the city boundaries. These factors and relatively good transport links mean that Exeter attracts large numbers of daily commuters who contribute to the city's particularly high employment density. Exeter is vital to the South West Peninsula. It has economic assets and strengths which can be built on and which can have higher multiplier effects. In addition, many places in the county have fallen further behind with geographical inequalities within the region, and in relation to other parts of the UK, Exeter's economic growth must therefore play an important role if genuine prospect of success is to be achieved. There is strong evidence that the improved connectivity between different places, rather than an absolute size of individual entities, is the critical factor in providing the conditions for productivity and polycentric growth, and this will require a different sub-regional approach to achieve economic integration. Also, Lord Mayor, we would want to take into account climate change, biodiversity, very important that we need to address those issues, and I think as a unitary authority we will be able to take those issues on in collaboration with partners and all groups. We think the importance of Exeter presents the basis for a strong case for a new unitary authority for Exeter, with the context of devolution to a new strategic authority for Devon and Cornwall and the Isles of Scilly. Working with communities, businesses, the education sector, regional partners in government, a unitary authority for Exeter will co-create and co-shape a new economic landscape, one that can drive an industrial strategy in Devon and the wider South West to both generate growth and more effectively connect with citizens and communities, mobilising social and behavioural change. Inclusive growth to eradicate large inequality gaps in the city and across the county will be a priority by expanding employment prospects, raising incomes and improving housing. Exeter can address the wider detriments of health to enable more residents to live longer in good health. This will be vital in reducing levels of dependency on public expenditure, allowing the county to be self-sustaining, and a unitary authority for Exeter's goals will be to create a thriving new economy, Lord Mayor, at the heart of the South West Peninsula that can grow and sustain financial secure employment and offer opportunities to all. A vibrant city extending opportunities to surrounding towns and villages, with a range of good quality housing and amenities where people and families want to live, learn and work. A place where businesses would choose to locate. A place where people and communities are supported to enjoy more productive, healthier and happier lives. A place where people want to live, work, visit, shop and study. A place that delivers productive, digital-enabled, customer-centric public services. Taking into consideration the strong track record of our ambitions for the future, we firmly believe that we have a strong evidence base to support a bid for unitary status. Lord Mayor, it is very important, and I know I bang on about Exeter and the success, and I think in so should every member in this council. This is a major opportunity for Exeter, a big political importance. Many of us will not be in a council which will have to make this decision again. The future of Exeter, to ensure that decisions for Exeter are taken in Exeter and by people in Exeter and its localities, is so important to everyone, Lord Mayor. Lord Mayor, I've been quite clear as the leader of the council on what the ambition I believe and my group believes, and I hope other political parties will share for Exeter in going forward. Lord Mayor, it is an uncertain political future for each and every party going forward. I accept that. Should that be the determining factor on why I should oppose or agree with something? No. I firmly believe, as an Exonian, brought up and lived here all my life, that this will be the best way for Exeter to move forward. The engine of Devon, of the economy, which is so important to many people. Lord Mayor, you told me you viewed the County Council webinar this morning. Obviously your diary was clear for that, and I appreciate that. It was quite clear. If I had had £100 for every time Exeter was mentioned this morning, I could say to Dave Hodgson, forget the 3.5 million deficit because we've got it covered. Because that's how many times we were mentioned this morning. I firmly believe people in the county understand that Exeter, together with Plymouth, are the drivers of the drivers of Devon to take the economy forward. People come to Exeter, they work in Exeter, they play in Exeter, and they shop in Exeter, and we're so pleased for that. Now that should never be at the expense of those communities in the countryside. We are not suggesting that at all. By working in a collaborative way, we will be able to enhance the offer for everybody in Devon. But Lord Mayor, holding Exeter back is not the way forward. The county changed their proposals this morning to modify it somewhere to have further discussions. However, James McInnes, the leader of the County Council, which I've got a lot of respect for, I've got a good working relationship with him and the officers at the county, made it perfectly clear that his personal preference was a unitary authority to include Torbay. He said it this morning. So I've been clear, Lord Mayor, from the get-go, as they say. Right as soon as they declared their hand, I was clear, Exeter will want unitary status. I think my colleagues in the county, in the Devon district, whereas they all have got various views, Lord Mayor, understand that, and I believe they respect our position. Indeed, they all recognise that Exeter is the place that will drive the county forward. I am trying, Lord Mayor, to tell them by having unitary status for whatever Exeter may or may not look like will not be at the expense of their economies. On the contrary, it will drive their economies. It will be better for them. But watering down a local authority like Exeter across Devon, as which my friends in East Devon are actually putting to their council this evening, they're actually determining geography, which we are not required to do, will serve nothing more than making two minor Devon County councils to discuss. That is not the intention of government. I know that. I've been told that. I'm convinced government is not for watering down urban cities such as Exeter, economic drivers, together with places like Norwich, Lincoln, Ipswich, Cambridge, Oxford. These are all important cathedral cities, university cities, driving growth in those areas. This government recognises that will be the heart in those counties. So it is up to us, Lord Mayor, and I am confident with the officers that we will be putting a fantastic case forward to government, first in the interim, and at whatever stage they decide to put us into. If they put us in the second phase, Lord Mayor, then so be it. We will have a bit more time and we will get it together. We will have a compelling argument. But it's not just about us, it's about the county we live in. And what we will be sure, and what we will be doing, and the recommendation in which it says the council notes makes it clear, I will continue to work in a collaborative way with the other leaders in Devon and the County Council and Torbay to ensure that we try to get the best possible unitary status for whatever Devon will look like going forward. Lord Mayor, I am committed to working collaboratively. The Devon districts have placed me as a non-constituent member, with certain non-voting rights, on the CCA, of which we have our first meeting tomorrow. I will attend that meeting. I will act in a professional way, doing the best for this city and also the Devon district in which I represent. And together with Councillor Arnold of East Devon, he will do the same. I can assure you that we will continue collaborating and working forward with all our partners in Devon. It is so, so important. So, Lord Mayor, I feel sure a number of other people will want to get in, but I want to make it perfectly clear on why we're doing this. It is about Exeter, which we all love and we're all passionate about, but it is not just about Exeter. Part of our case will be on why you need to let us go, why it's good for you to let us go. That's what I will be saying. That's what we need to make it clear, that we would be the economic driver. There's much to do, there's lots of opportunities, and I'm hoping this debate will demonstrate that much of what people would want to see for Exeter, as I do. And who knows, Lord Mayor? Who knows? We may even get to run our own buses in Exeter. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Leader. I have several councillors have already indicated, so I'll read them out in order. So, Councillor Vizard, Councillor Matthew Williams, Councillor Diana Moore, Councillor Michael Mitchell, Councillor Anne Jobson, the Deputy Lord Mayor, and then we also have Councillor Wood and Councillor Rees. So I now call upon Councillor Vizard, and we have more as well. Councillor Vizard first.
Thank you very much, Lord Mayor. Can I welcome the leader's speech, which covers a lot of ground, so I can't promise not to repeat certain topics, but I will try to avoid repeating phrases and too much of the substance. So firstly, can I thank the Chief Executive and other officers for their work to bring forward this report at pace and with a very short time frame. And I also want to recognise the impact of the government plans for reorganisation on council staff, and that the months ahead will be challenging and uncertain. And that is why I welcome the council moving so swiftly to indicate its position and bring forward the report this evening. I support the government's ambitions on devolution and welcome the opportunity that this can bring for Exeter, as the leader has so rightly stated. I welcome too the two recommendations set out in the report and the work the Chief Executive Leader and other group leaders have undertaken. Thank you all. I support the recommendations for the Council to undertake work with neighbouring authorities to bring forward a plan for a unitary Exeter in order to take control of our own destiny and retain local democracy close to the people of Exeter, and not a single unitary Devon that would distance this and dilute Exeter's economic, housing and net zero ambitions. ambitions. And on that, we have so often spoken about the obstacles and sometimes the frustrations we face as a two-tier local authority structure as we are now when it comes to our net zero goals. It is not a panacea and it remains very challenging, but I have a vision of a unitary Exeter authority that can take control of all the local levers, including highways and public transport, to help us to deliver net zero at our bold and ambitious pace. Council housing, domestic property, commercial and public building decarbonisation, access to nature, biodiversity net gain, cycling and walking infrastructure, transport, highways. These are the various jigsaw pieces towards net zero for Exeter. Imagine these under one roof, partnering with the university, which sits at the world's top table for climate research and influence, to deliver the economic means and stakeholder investments to drive this on. That's my vision. I urge members to speak as one this evening and support the recommendations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Vizard. Councillor Matthew Williams.
Thank you, Lord Mayor, and completely associate myself with both the remarks of Councillor Vizard and also the leader regarding the remarks, and also the thanks to the officers for preparing this. Two words I think stand out for me in this particular report to recommendations, and I've underlined both of them just because my eyes are getting old. Opportunity and ambition. And I think looking back at it, as you did, we had a shared background, though perhaps not at the same time. Growing up as a young boy in Exeter in the 1990s, thinking about the university not as well renowned, not even part of the Ross Group, I don't believe, as it was then. Wilton Way, opposite which I grew up, not even built. Pinhole Road, Sainsbury's, not there. Met Office, not there. Science Park, not there. Sandy Park, not even lit in the Milkman's Eye. So I think all these people at one stage growing up, someone was ambitious about Exeter, about Exeter's future. I think we must be the same again tonight. A newly elected councillor in May of 2023, my inbox was suddenly full of emails, many from people who actually I could not directly help because they are, as a city councillor, not directly under our auspices. I think that going to a unitary status would therefore help alleviate that and therefore provide better outcomes for citizens, because councils could directly help people, not merely pushing them around sort of the bureaucratic corridors and labyrinths that may lie within. One of my colleagues at work today, I spoke to in the Manchester office, talked to me with great enthusiasm about the B network up in Greater Manchester, and I think what potentially bosses under Exeter's control could actually potentially do, and I feel the same sort of ambition and opportunity lies there. I share the opposition to one unitary authority for Devon, which I regard as unwieldy, and I'm unsure how it would work. I think one area that would definitely benefit us to have unitary status is strategic planning, looking at local authorities actually having a proper conversation about housing and where we do that strategically. The leader mentioned about our travel to work area, what does the future look like? We know that you have these housing targets, but where, and it does feel a little bit as if our neighbouring and friendly authorities plonk as part of their allocations housing right up next to the border and say, you take this, but we'll take all the still and section 106 money back to wherever it happens to be. I see this as an opportunity to end that unfairness and actually have a proper, serious discussion about, and also for better planning outcomes. How many times do we assess planning applications? Are we sending highways matters to somebody else? The bulk of the planning is done here and decisions are made here in Exeter. I think it also, as Councillor Vizard mentioned, an integrated plan for net zero for active travel and for transport wider than buses. And I think that those will be close to Councillor Michael Mitchell's heart as well. I think it provides an opportunity for better scrutiny, because if all the thing is taken under one thing, you can have proper scrutiny officers. There can be actually scrutiny topics where you have to call people there and they can't say, sorry, it's nothing to do with you, we're not going to attend. I think it will lead to better outcomes that way, better outcomes for citizens. And finally, I support something I never thought I'd say. I agree with something that Plymouth City Council have recommended, which is that regarding the creation of a strategic mayoral authority. Privately, I might have my own views on mayors and their efficacy outside of vast metropolitan areas like London, but I think that would really see drive economic growth, and if that is the direction of travel that the government wishes to take with devolution, I think we should be a part of it rather than sit on our hands. For those reasons, and plenty more because other members want to speak, I should be supporting the recommendations. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Williams. Councillor Diana Moore.
we had our own local drama of the government's white paper on devolution and local government reorganisation. Tidy, as Nessa would say. Reorganisation is much more than a tidying up exercise. Councils work at their best when the services in our communities and environment quietly work away due to the hard work of officers and staff who are often unappreciated, often unnoticed, but can literally deliver life-saving or transformative help. Councils help keep the places we love lovely. It is these needs that must be absolutely at the forefront of the change to our council structures. Indeed, Devon County Council has really embraced these plans, rushing to be part of the ambitious programme, and indeed Plymouth's seizing of opportunity have both raised eyebrows and caused consternation in their wake. So, as the saying goes, never let a good crisis go to waste. But let's make a thoughtful case for Exeter to become a unitary council with careful negotiation with residents and neighbours. I don't expect lots of emails from residents who are going to lament the loss of a two-tier structure. We've heard already it causes confusion, and in fact I would go as far to say it's not served Exeter well in many ways. A fresh start with services under one roof is welcome. Reorganisation and mayoral authorities are the direction of travel, it's just a case of when. But there's plenty of hyperbolic talk of ambition, at pace, and of course the holy grail of growth. We need to ensure services and democracy are redesigned and rooted in meeting the needs of our local communities, our environment, tackling net zero, and also our local heritage, which is precious to Exeter. It also may mean we need parish councils in Exeter, as there are across Devon, to enable decisions to be taken at the most local level possible. Chasing GDP, how money moves around the economy, isn't necessarily going to tackle increasing inequality in our city and the growing child poverty in some areas of Devon. Chasing GDP at all costs will continue to put a price above valuing Devon's precious environment. If government is really concerned about increasing money supply, it must increase the funding to local authorities, not reduce it as implied by your good self, leader. Services have been cut to the bone with 2 decades of austerity. This was a political choice, and this government seems to be continuing this. This council will not receive any rise in its grant from government this year, nothing. So when we meet next time here, it will be to consider what cuts we think our communities will have to bear. The consultants, PwC, tidily conclude that fewer authorities will save money, and this council report tells us there are no financial implications at this stage, but I am sure that the consultants are going to significantly benefit from this reorganisation. Now I must say I do appreciate the Chief Executive's efforts to ensure councils have been kept informed. It's been running on the wrong elevator, going the wrong way really. But we need to give a message back to government that if the process continues at pace with new daily guidance, it will trip councils up and divert us from our core mission of delivering local services. We also need transparency. This week's shenanigans and the publication of papers only a few hours before meetings does nothing to enable the public's understanding of what is going on. So I have some questions for the leader. I've got 3. How do you intend to involve councillors and also properly engage the communities we serve in this process? Do you agree that democracy we have at the moment is important and that May's elections shouldn't be cancelled, and indeed that the letter won't request this? And thirdly, will an interim report be presented to Council in February before any proposals are finalised or submitted to government? As has been mentioned, we've already had a combined authority, a county combined authority set up, which is going to be run by a handful of councillors not directly elected to that body. and we must learn from this democratic deficit with any new strategic authority that's going to be set up. Such a body could work well if it operates on the basis of subsidiarity, where decisions are made at the most local level possible and referred up when the scope is broader. This must be the approach to negotiating, not announcing the boundaries of these new authorities. In 2022, Exeter City Council backed a motion calling for proportional voting in general elections. I regret that my Labour colleagues removed a similar commitment in the motion for local elections. However, we have new regional bodies, and this offers an opportunity to introduce a fair voting system, ensuring people's votes count, rather than relying on an outdated first-past-the-post system for such roles. Proportional representation worked well indeed for the European and regional elections across the southwest. So, we must not let this good crisis go to waste. Whilst our city is relatively wealthy, our communities and our environment face ongoing uncertainty, and for some, the future is bleak. We face many challenges as a council, but it is our responsibility to create opportunities for positive change. As you know, Leader, I see the role of the opposition as one of constructive challenge, and I will do my best to contribute in this way as we work through these changes. Ultimately, we must ensure that the needs of our communities and the environment are at the heart of what we do next. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Moore. As stated previously, those questions will be taken at the end. So just to update people on who I have on the list, I have Councillor Michael Mitchell, Councillor Anne Johnson, the Deputy Lord Mayor, Councillor Rees, Councillor Wood, I believe, Councillor Palmer, Councillor Parkhouse, and thank you. So now Councillor Mitchell, if you'd like to walk.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. If I can start on a rather light side to this important discussion, I just wonder on the 17th of December whether the leader added or deleted Angela Rayner from his Christmas card list. I note this morning when I was watching on YouTube, he attended the County Council meeting. I think he was almost sizing up our new council chamber, because it is quite impressive. Yet again, we have an early surprise package from this government, which wasn't detailed in their manifesto. The white paper certainly doesn't lack clarity about the way forward and the speed at which the change is to take place. Looking at the key components, if there had been advanced consultation, what would I have contributed? I favour unitary authorities as they provide a one-stop shop for residents regarding most local services. Like many of you, when constituents get in contact with us, it is often a county council issue. And we've got to say, no, that's a county council issue. You need to contact your county councillor. In all the years I've been a councillor, I've never had a county councillor contact me to say, I've got a local council issue for you to deal with. It is always the other direction, because we are the first stop on the shop of local government. And it mustn't be lost. Yes, I support unitary authorities working together in on strategic matters, but I have severe reservations. I'm pleased that Councillor Williams spoke earlier about directly elected mayors, especially in mixed urban rural areas. In a metropolitan area, I believe there is a potential need for them. Also, I'm opposed to the concept, which is new to British politics, of directly electing a single person to a post. We don't do that for our Prime Minister, even though we tend to have presidential-style elections. We don't elect a Prime Minister. We haven't got as far as electing judges or police yet, but let's hope they don't copy too many more things from America. Because if you look at Devon and Cornwall as a potential strategic mayoral authority, if you started at the eastern end, if I get the directions right, at our end of the authority, if he was going in the opposite direction, he'd be out to London by the time he finished. So I assume a helicopter would be first thing on the mayor's list for getting around to know what's happening in his authority. So I do have reservations, but one thing I will say, I also have similar reservations about a directly elected police and crime commissioner. Those of you who remember the first set of elections for those when there were standalone elections, it was the worst turnout in any national elections ever seen in this country. 12.5% turned out to vote. And ever since then, police and crime commissioner elections have been linked to local government to push the turnover up, because there was no public appetite for the office. But I do notice even in current legislation, it's possible for the mayors, where the boundaries agree, also become police and crime commissioners themselves. So possibly we can save a little money there by merging those posts if we have to have a directly elected mayor. I fully support devolution. It's in our DNA as Liberal Democrats, but it's defined as a transfer of power from a greater to a lesser body. Sadly, I believe this white paper is more about upwards centralisation because of the size and nature of the unitary authorities that will exist, which are far different than the unitary authority that Exeter got through all its stages from 206 to 210. The danger is we move decision-making away from local communities and those who benefit from the services are provided. Councils are just about to receive an invitation from government about establishing these new unitary authorities and the associated criteria. So we don't know yet what's on the application form, whether we meet the criteria or what we've got to do. So I won't be doing the roll call, which I totally agree with everything the leader said about Exeter, because yet we don't know what boxes we tick, don't tick, and what's got to be done. This evening we're putting a marker down, which I fully support, stating that Exeter should be the focal point for a new unitary authority. The white paper states that a population of 500,000 or more is required for a new unitary authority, and 1.5 million for a strategic mayoral authority. The combined population of Devon and Cornwall is above 1.5, so you can see why that odd discussion is taking place around those boundaries. The white paper does allow for exceptions to the 500,000 number. And numbers have been quoted, not publicly yet, but have been quoted up between 300 and 350,000 for those exceptions. But yet, until we get the invitation and the criteria, hopefully some more elaboration on what exceptions are and how you apply to meet that exceptional criteria. Again, as I said, we lack the detail. I'd like to thank the Chief Executive for all her work on this matter during the Christmas recess, and thank the leader for involving other party leaders in discussions on this matter. This is an extremely disturbing time for our employees who have just been through an internal reorganisation, if that wasn't unsettling enough. So I hope this collegiate approach, which is already mentioned will continue so our staff and the people of Exeter know we're striving together to achieve the best outcome for Exeter. This brings me on to an important component, I believe, of the white paper, underlying the white paper, which is the issue of working with others in consultations and consulting as widely as possible within whatever time frame we are given by the government. The white paper stresses the importance of finding solutions for an area, but it doesn't define what the area is. So are we talking about Exeter, or are we talking about Devon, because that's the county with second-tier councils under it? Does it then also include Torbay and Plymouth, which are currently unitary authorities, but according to the government criteria are too small? And they are going to be written to, apparently. They're looking for one agreed solution for that area to come forward, so that reorganisation and devolution can proceed. That clearly implies that all local authorities at all tiers, and I think that does involve our neighbourhood towns and parishes, because they'll be impacted by the general moving up of unitary authorities, to work together to see if we can agree a way forward. That is going to be difficult, but I think we should try to achieve that across all our councils and groups in Devon. And for that, I'd like to mention and thank the leader for his agreement to the joint Devon District Council statement, which has appeared on some council websites. So I'd like to kindly read it, because I think this gives us a framework in which all the council leaders, Labour, Liberal Democrat and Independent in Devon, representing the 8 district councils, jointly agreed. I don't know how the leaders signed, signature over it, but he did sign it. All right. The Devon districts were fully supportive of genuine devolution of powers from Whitehall to local government. However, the publication of the devolution white paper and subsequent statements by the leader of Devon County Council, we would like to make clear that we do not support the creation of one unitary council for Devon. Our county, including Torbay, is diverse and made up of nearly 1 million residents across urban, coastal and rural areas. Any reform of local government in Devon should follow a period of proper consultation with residents, businesses, elected representatives and stakeholders. Looking at the evidence, we should decide collectively what is best for our area. A single unitary council for the county risks diminishing local representation with decision making that is remote from the communities we serve. We do not support the postponing of the county council elections scheduled for May 25. The government has indicated this will only happen in priority areas who have clear and agreed plans. This is not the case in Devon, so we cannot be in the first phase of these reforms. We recognise that the government's white paper sets a clear direction of travel. As Devon's city, district and borough council leaders, we want to work collaboratively with others, in particular our neighbouring unitary councils, i.e. Torbay and Plymouth, to agree how we can respond to this. Any changes must be carefully considered, transparent and inclusive, ensuring that residents and businesses are fully engaged in shaping the future governance of Devon. Our objective must be to get this right for our residents and businesses. This cannot be achieved if we make rushed decisions that have not been given the serious consideration they deserve. Councillor Paul Arnold, East Devon, Councillor Phil Bialik, Exeter, Councillor Julian Brazil, South Hams, Councillor David Clayton, North Devon, Councillor Manley Ewings, West Devon, Councillor Ken James, Torridge, Councillor Richard Keeling, Teambridge, Councillor Luke Taylor, Mid Devon. Those are the leaders of all the district councils. And I think hopefully all of us could endorse those comments in the same way that our leader endorsed those comments. Devon County Council has had the opportunity since December the 16th, but appears to approach this topic as they know best. And that was the feeling I got as I had the leader this morning listening to the debate. They will decide for, don't you worry yourself, children. We'll decide for you. We'll tell you what's going to happen. And even to the extent that they think they can talk on behalf of Torbay, what the Torbay had say in it. And come up with this concept of one unitary authority for Devon, including Torbay, who weren't asked apparently, I don't think, but excluding Plymouth, and with no consultations. I think that sums up a lot about the attitude of the arrogance of the County Council in regard to this matter. Today, they propose, as has been said, no proposed suggested outcome. They aren't sure really what they want now because they've removed the single unitary authority, but they'll come to a decision and they'll tell us later what they're going to do. And as already been mentioned, Team Devon is mentioned as a successful coming together of local authorities in Devon to discuss common issues and problems, particularly in relation to the combined authority. It was meeting this week. Who cancelled the meeting? Devon County Council. That's how much they want to collaborate and consult and talk and work with people. And that should have been the starting place, if not an earlier meeting, for a dialogue. Interestingly, in my former life, I used to teach A-level politics for many years and teach and lecture on political education. So I found a paper, sorry for something, 1968. It goes beyond some of you, but it was a time in history. And there's a well-known Prime Minister called Harold Wilson, an extremely able Labour politician. And the Labour government set up a Royal Commission into local government called Radcliffe Moore. You had a double-barreled names in those days. And the commission reported. And they produced the concept that there would be 61 councils in England, only 61. 3 of them would be metropolitan, that's Birmingham, Liverpool and Manchester, and 58 would be single authorities. And I have the map. Obviously somebody at Devon County Council, because there must be a similar age to me, can remember this. Because the map for Devon was Devon minus an extended Plymouth. So we got a large Plymouth and the rest is Devon. That was the unitary authority, effectively, or call them unitary authorities, that existed in those days. And then we belonged in a southwest zone, which made up Cornwall, this Plymouth, Devon, Somerset, Dorset. And do you know what? That was 1968. You get to 1972, joined the European Economic Community as it then was. That became the economic planning zone for the European Union, as it was. So interesting that somebody close looked at the Devon archives and decided what went before is best for it. And as you remember, the Tories won the 1970 election. All the councillors said, we can't have this, we're all going to be out of business. They scrapped it, we'll have a two-tier system introduced by the local government. That in 1972. Look at closer to something. 1972, and as I'll say at the end, I was involved in that. I'm a guilty partner to that one. We're all going out of business, as the leader of the county council said this morning. Some of us would wish some are quicker than others. And both the counties and the districts are going. So it's in our interest that we get it, that what happens works well for the people of Devon, including Torbay and Plymouth. Plymouth, as far as I know, whilst it's a separate unit, it's still a part of the geographical part of Devon. I don't see it as a separate entity. And I hope we as a council, although we are committed to Exeter and what we want for Exeter, will not sit in a silo and not work and talk with others. Unless we cooperate and unless a solution comes forward, central government will impose a solution upon us. And remember, they talk of no devolution deserts, no gaps in the system. My gravest concern is that size matters. That's what I've been told. A too big a UA for Exeter will make us unwieldy and non-responsive to the needs of all the communities within that new unitary authority. Too small and will not deliver the range and depth of services required by unitary. We've not mentioned adult social care. We've not taken education. We've not done SEND. Now, they are bankrupting the county council now. And that is a much bigger authority than the unitary authority. So there are additional services, and we've got to get it right. But the issue is, it is no good getting it right for Exeter, and the rest of Devon is impoverished and cannot survive. We've got to get a package together that works for the whole of Devon. And also the clues in our descriptor of local councils. We're local councils. While size gives you that greater financial resource and increased service provision, we're going to go from hundreds of us to handfuls of us in this new authority. How does that bring democracy closer to the electorate? How much distance will they feel? We've got to ensure there's proper representation and proper numbers of elected people there, so we do not get that distance between the electorate and those elected. It's also, as the Leader has already mentioned to us in private and made in his speech, it's important that the public, businesses, the third sector and other public sector bodies are involved in debating and discussing the way forward, be it the health authority, be it the police. There are strategic authorities that have to work with these new unitary authorities. I do hope that the invitation material from government allows for and requires full consultation in the evidence that we'll have to put in at some stage. This is what I have to own up to guilt. I was involved in 1972 as a member of Exmouth Urban District Council, a little town 10, 12 miles down on the estuary which we know. And I led a campaign to reject the overtures of one Exeter City Council that wanted to take us over and make us a part of a new district council. So 53 years later, I am now a member of Exeter City Council, wanting to encourage talks and discussions with our neighbouring authorities, including Exmouth Town Council and East Devon Council, to seek the best way forward for them and for us. So at the end of the day, we are here doing the best for our residents. I also think, as a Devonian, not an Exonian, as a Devonian, someone born in Torridge, brought up in North Devon, educated in East Devon, living in Torbay, working in Plymouth, living in Exeter for 30 years, let's see if we can help and get it right, because the answer is in our hands in Devon. If we can get it right, it can be delivered. If we can't agree and get it right, somebody else will deliver it for us. That, to me, is the worst outcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mitchell. We've had 5 speakers so far, so at this point I would just like to request that any future speakers, and I have 9 already on here, please try not to repeat points that have already been made, so that we can have a more healthy debate. And sometimes brevity is actually far better at getting your point across. So, Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'll tear up 33 pages of my speech. Firstly, I'd like to thank the Chief Executive and her team for the work, the hours of work that they have done since the 16th of December, and the hours of work that I anticipate that they will have to do as the weeks and months pass. Secondly, I would remind people here that the Conservative group on Exeter City Council supported the bid for unitary status back in 2009-2010, and therefore it's not perhaps surprising that we are supporting the recommendations this evening. However, I go on to say it's unfortunate that this government is seeking to dictate to local councils how they operate now and in the future. Councils represent local people, and it is local people who must come first in local decision making. These proposals must not be allowed to become a recipe for taking power away from local communities. Local government must remain responsive to the needs of local taxpayers, and I find it difficult to believe that any system not including a district council or a style of district council will be able to do that. For instance, local councils need to retain control over local planning decisions. It's difficult to see how neighbourhood plans will survive with any meaning at all with the upheaval of power. A mayoral strategic authority must not have overall control and determination of local planning decision making. But that being said, as I've indicated, we cannot bury our heads in the sand and not engage in this process, and for that reason we'll be supporting this evening's recommendations. It also seems to us that such a huge change that will radically alter how local government works, a ridiculously short timescale is currently being put forward by government. And as matters progress, this council should ensure that it is not being bullied into local government restructuring, which does not secure the ability to continue to make those local decisions for local people. Changes should not only take into account the historic role that Exeter has played in Devon and the wider region, but for the future of this city, which will involve greater joint working and stronger local accountability. I've said local government should be local to residents. It should respect proud local identities. And any structural changes should also be local decisions by locally elected representatives, by consultation and listening to the views of local people. Devolution should, Lord Mayor, be about local decision making. We look forward to working collaboratively in the best interests of Exeter and the wider Devon area in the coming months. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Johnson. Deputy Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I will be very brief, seeing as it's been fairly, most of my points have already been covered. I've only been in this chamber for a very short period of time, and every single day that I have been here, I have received an email from a resident that has caused exactly the problems that people have talked about with their residents. Our public find it absolutely incomprehensible, the two-tier system. When they're contacting me about buses or about potholes, and I have to say, well, hold on there, I'll do my best, I'll try and pass it on. And how long do we have to wait before we get any sort of response? The two-tier system does not work, and therefore I will definitely be supporting these recommendations and voting in favour of a unitary organisation. I note in section 5, the 151 officer saying that there are no financial implications to the decision that we make tonight. I'm sure there will be financial implications. going forward that we'll have to meet at different budgetary meetings. And I also note the recommendation 3 that the geography is obviously not up for discussion tonight. So I do please encourage a unanimous vote in favour of these recommendations. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Deputy Lord Mayor. Councillor Rees.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I absolutely support a joined up approach, as has been outlined very, very clearly. That is what the residents of Exeter want and repeatedly tell us they want to see us working together to provide the services in the most joined up and efficient way. And it was, thank you to our Chief Executive, who used that approach, that word, the joined up approach, and you talked about focusing on that service to the people of Exeter. And that is really, really important. There are some big challenges we face, like the climate emergency, as Councillor Vizard and our leader highlighted, that we simply cannot address in the best way unless we are working together. And so it absolutely makes sense, and I know that I believe that the residents that I represent will absolutely support that unitary approach. What I would just like to highlight, I was really pleased to hear our leader talk about collaboration, and that used that word many times, and we've seen that already. So you've already demonstrated that collaborative approach. And there are going to be lots of discussions and negotiations needed moving forward. And that's the bit I wanted to focus on now today, is it is a time of uncertainty. And uncertainty causes anxiety, it causes worry, that has been for many people. And this is a time now where we need to really listen and take the time to have those discussions and to have a really holistic approach so that it is not at the expense, and that again I think is what you said, Chief Executive, it's not at the expense of others. To fully support an Exeter focus for a unitary authority, but not at the expense of other areas. So I really welcome this collaboration and the time and effort that is being put in by everybody to explore possibilities, negotiate and find something that works for everybody. Thank you so much, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Rees. Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I think a lot has been said already about the quality of this council, the opportunities that have been pursued and the challenges that have been met. So I won't repeat those. I will just go on record saying how proud I am to be a councillor within this council, however long it may last. And also to say how proud I am to be a member of the executive and to have seen and been involved in some of the fantastic things this council has done. More than once I've been at national conferences, I've been at various events. I'll meet other councillors who have heard of us, and when I go on to say that we're two-tier, that we're a district council, they can't believe it. They believe we are unitary already by the way we act and what we deliver. But as I say, I won't go into that in any great depth. I just want to focus a little bit, I think, about outside of the city. As we've heard, the challenge set before us now is not something we can meet within our own city limits. We have to look beyond our city. But for me, that makes perfect sense. I'm a Pinhoe councillor, and I'm very aware of the many thousands of residents living in new developments that are nestled up against our city limits. As Councillor Williams has said, this is happening all around our city. Now these new residents, I can only talk of Pinhoe, they come into Pinhoe, they are part of Pinhoe. They look to the city for its resources. They are Exeter City residents, but there's a line being drawn which no longer has any relevance. They are part of the city. So I look beyond that. As has been mentioned, you often get emails that you can't help with. I get a lot of emails from residents. I can't help them because they're not in Exeter. But they've been sold a house that they've been sold saying, it's in Pinhoe and it's in Exeter. It isn't at the moment. So I think the other thing is that the city limits were established a long time ago. We've moved a long way since then. My ward and my home are now in a separate constituency, Exmouth and Exeter East. Unsurprisingly, during the general election, I was outside of the city for quite a while, talking to different people I've not met before on the doorstep, visiting our parishes and towns that I've not really spent the same amount of time with, speaking to individuals on doorsteps, talking to them about what's important to them. And there is a lot of connectivity, there's a lot of parallels to those individuals, their aspirations, and our residents' aspirations. There are really strong links outside, looking towards the city. It's a symbiotic relationship. Those communities are unique and they're valued, but they look to the city as well. Often they're if you've ever gone on the roads down the main arterial routes in and out of the city, you will see a lot of traffic coming into the city and going out. This is a thriving, wider city environment. It makes sense that we actually acknowledge that we recognise and value the towns, the parishes, the communities that are part of a wider Exeter family. They are unique, they do need to be recognised, but I think that there is a great value to bring them in and for us all to work together to further the prosperity of the wider area. And as has been said, there's a lot of work ahead of us. There's a lot of work ahead of the whole of Devon, but I think that the logic that's being put forward is actually quite overdue. The city is bigger than it is. It delivers results far bigger than it should, and it's to the benefit of well beyond our city limits. It's about time, I think, that was recognised. So I will be supporting this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wood. So left on my list so far, I have Councillor Palmer, Councillor Parkhouse, Councillor Holland, Councillor Wright, Councillor Miller-Bowen, Councillor Fulham and Councillor Reid. Are there anyone else? Is there anyone else? Right. Yep. Okay. I think I might get to the stage of asking who hasn't spoken. We'll now move on to Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, and I hope you don't mind. I will just very quickly repeat, because I think it is super important, my absolute thanks to Bindu, the officers, to the leader of the council, and also to the other leaders as well. I know from the sheer number of WhatsApp messages I had from Mike over Christmas, he was working very hard, and I'm sure the others were too. I think I also want to acknowledge, firstly, how challenging I think this situation is for all of us, regardless of our politics. And I know lots of you have long-standing roots in Exeter and the wider community, and you'll have really personal feelings about this, and I've heard lots of that this evening. It's actually been quite interesting listening to councillors Mitchell and Mitchell about their own really passionate views about Exeter and Devon more broadly. And as a relative newcomer to the city, I don't have those personal connections, so I absolutely understand how important this is, the historical context of this, and that this is a really big decision that we're making. So, like all of us, I came into political life because I have a real passion and belief in community and the importance of local democracy. And as Mike says, as somebody with liberal views, the concept of devolution, the importance of community and democracy is so important to me. And I feel so strongly that communities have to have a voice and a really genuine stake in how villages, towns and cities are run. Both in the day-to-day aspects of life, but also the big long-term issues that impact them as well. And I agree, look, in lots of ways this isn't political, and I'm afraid I do have some criticisms, but they are not aimed at anybody here, because we're all here together. We've been thrown into this unusual set of circumstances, and somehow we've got to try to find a solution. But it is political, isn't it? Because this government has forced onto us what feels like a very rushed and ill-thought-through white paper with impossible deadlines that just don't allow us to have what I think are the really meaningful, sensitive discussion, debate and collaboration that's needed to help us to get to the right solution. I support the idea of Exeter being a unitary authority for all of the reasons that have been given, and actually having been a councillor in a unitary authority, I promise you really can get stuff done. But I will warn you, if you do get it, you will end up with a phone full of pictures of you pointing at potholes, and your phone becomes very clumped up quite quickly. But being a unitary authority really does mean, and myself, I found it very confusing moving here that we had a two-tier system. I wasn't used to it, completely didn't understand who on earth I needed to speak to. So actually having a one-tiered system certainly would work for us. And I genuinely hope that the government listens when you do. Unfortunately, I'm not so convinced that they are, because actually my sense of this government really is that they don't listen to people, that they're not interested in people's views. It's very top-down, but I genuinely really do hope that when we put our submission in, that they listen to us. I think the one aspect here that I cannot and will not be able to support is strategic mayoral authority. I think it adds bureaucracy and additional politics that are just not needed. It's confusing, it's complicated, and as other people have said, the area is just too broad, too wide. What people genuinely need is local representation, and I am really quite concerned actually that the most vulnerable people in our communities, the people that really rely on that ultra-local kind of that person that can support them and that they need isn't going to be there for them, and actually they become more marginalised by these processes. So I cannot support that particular thing. I think the cost is something that we cannot underestimate. I understand that there is no cost immediately, but actually the long-term cost, there really is a cost that local authorities may have to shoulder the burden on. And I think, when we're really thinking about the services that people need, children's and adult services, in all local authorities, are hugely over budget. They're so important. Is this really the right way to be spending money? I think my final point is that, this speaks very much to me as being the opposite of what's being described. This doesn't feel like power being taken away from Westminster as it should be. It very much feels like a power grab. It feels like a government that wants more control over things like planning. We know this government has an obsession with not listening. It said itself it's going to bulldoze through what other people think about planning. The communities don't have a say in those kinds of decisions. I have real concerns that this isn't democracy, but it's potentially a dictatorship.
Next we have Councillor Parkhouse.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Today I'll be speaking to express my strong support for the recommendations, and I'm glad that it seems that all parties are minded to support the recommendations, and I just have to say I'm sorry to hear others politicise this issue. These proposals represent an opportunity for Exeter to take control of our future, strengthening our governance, economy and community identity in meaningful ways. Firstly, let us recognise the potential of a unitary Exeter Council. By adopting unitary status, we position Exeter as a city capable of better managing our resources, driving regeneration and responding more effectively to the unique challenges and opportunities of our area. As mentioned by other colleagues, this includes exciting thinking on buses, joined up thinking on goals for net zero, as well as larger challenges that have been mentioned, such as delivering social care and education. Some of you might know that I was born and raised in Devon, in Barnstaple, and whilst I loved growing up there, I left for education and for work and ended up in Exeter. As already alluded to, Exeter is not simply a part of Devon, it's the economic, cultural and educational engine of the region. A unitary structure would reflect this. I speak to friends who work in Exeter but live on the outskirts, and they complain to me because they know I'm a councillor, but when I ask them what name's on their bin, it's often not Exeter. They're not actually an Exeter City Council, as has been alluded to, and so I echo sentiments of other councillors that these residents would benefit being part of a greater Exeter unitary structure. Secondly, the urgency of this matter can't be overstated. While with other councils preparing their own proposals, it's essential that we don't lose our voice as Exeter in these transformative discussions. Failing to act now risks our city's priorities being overshadowed by broader rural concerns, which could dilute our economic contributions and stifle our potential as a driver of growth for the region. As others have noticed, feels like a rushed process, but I'm glad to read in the report that it's the intention of this government to manage this change over the next 2 parliaments, which is 10 years, 1 decade. Moreover, this proposal aligns with the aspirations of the White Paper itself, which emphasises simpler governance structures, so I can't really see a way that this would cost more money in the long term. A unitary Exeter is not just a practical necessity, it's a bold step towards ensuring that the people of Exeter have responsive, efficient and forward-thinking leadership that they deserve. Finally, these recommendations reflect a vision for a better connected, more resilient and more equitable Exeter. They're a testament to our commitment to the values of community leadership and inclusion, and by pursuing this path, we affirm that our belief that local governments should serve the specific needs of local people. As a current student with an essay due this week, I know the feeling of working over the Christmas period, so I want to end by thanking officers and the Chief Executive who have spent the Christmas and New Year period focusing on this issue. Council colleagues, I urge you to support these recommendations, to submit this letter of intent to the government. Let us seize this moment to shape the future where decisions for Exeter are made in Exeter. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Parkhouse. So those councillors that have indicated they wish to speak are Councillor Holland, Councillor Bright, Councillor Miller-Bowen, Councillor Fulham, Councillor Reid, Councillor Harding, Councillor Wardle, Councillor Poe and Councillor Asper-Stassen. Anyone else? No. So I propose that we'll have those speakers and then we'll come to a close, hopefully, at that point. So Councillor Holland, if you'd like to speak.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I'm going to focus on Exeter mainly because that's where I've lived most of my life. Our sons were born here and I'm passionate about the city and recognise that it's the jewel in the crown in the county of Devon. We're on the M5 corridor and have an international airport, as the leader has already said, mainline train station at St David's. All of this makes Exeter the gateway to the wider southwest of England. We're not an industrial city, nor a manufacturing one, but we are the centre of excellence for innovation, with a world-class university, a leading hospital, and not least of all, the Science Park. We are the chosen city for the headquarters of the Met Office, the police, the fire brigade and the military who are based at Barrack Road. The city was so well protected between 1941 and 1943 during World War II by the Free Poles who flew out of Exeter Airport. We owe the 307 Squadron a debt of gratitude so that we can still enjoy the Royal Albert Museum, Tucker's Hall, and not least of all the cathedral where folk have worshipped for centuries. The very chamber we're in tonight, Exeter Guildhall, is likely the oldest civic building still in use across the country for that purpose. Exeter thrives on the hospitality trade with top-class hotels and eateries, boosting the late-night economy and drawing people from far and wide, and long may that continue. Lord Mayor, you are the greatest invisible export we have. In addition to chairing our meetings, please don't rush, chairing our meetings, you promote the city and boost international relations, hosting visits from our twinning neighbours in Terracina, Rennes and Bad Homburg. You host dignitaries from further afield, promoting foreign investment and business links, and for that we thank you. You work and support local businesses, charities and community organisations. With all of the changes that devolution will bring, the last thing that I would wish to see is for the mayoralty to go into decay. It is an integral part of who we are as a city. Colleagues, there are 39 of us here tonight, we're all here, but under devolution that will likely fall to 18, to represent what is an ever-growing city and hinterland. So half of us will not be here in, say, 2 years' time. Equally, we have some of the best offices in Devon and here at Exeter City Council, and it is a great sadness to me that the folk that I've worked with for over a decade may need to go through some kind of preference exercise to remain gainfully employed in the city, where I hope they can all secure jobs. So, back in 2009, when I was chairman of governors of a large maintained primary school in the city, we were consulted on whether or not Exeter should become a unitary authority. After our debate in school, I sat alongside Joan Morris. Some of you may know Joan Morris. She wasn't a Liberal Democrat, she was a Liberal. And I voted, she voted, we both voted to support unitary authority. And my position remains unchanged 15 years later. I supported devolution, unitary status then, and I support it again today. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councillor Holland. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Just about everybody has said just about everything I was going to say, of course, because one of the things about the people in this chamber is that no matter what political colour we are, no matter where we come from demographically, we are all absolutely invested and absolutely united in the fact that we want to do the best for Exeter. So I'm sure we will all support this I'm leaping ahead, this recommendations, thank you very much, tonight. Yes, same as everybody else, most of the ward work that we get, the casework, is actually stuff that we have to then try and intervene and pass up and deal with because we can't make the decisions on ourselves. And along with roads maintenance, transport and highways planning, making sure possibly in the future that all the three main roads into St Thomas aren't closed at the same time would be great to have a little bit of that local input. But also the SEND provision and the access for our kids in Exeter that are going to schools. And as everybody has said, residents don't often realise that we don't have sort of control or authority in that area. And so power grab, no. This is something that we know what we need to do next, so we need to remove that tier that stops us from doing it, if we can. So I won't bang on about everything, but I would like to thank the leader and the chief exec for the work they've done so far, and the work that is coming up from all of the officers, all of us, but also the leaders of the opposition. And I've already learned a lot from the grandfather of the chamber about about where St Thomas and Carrick used to be years ago, which is an area that I grew up in, but I hope that this collaboration will carry on, and I'm sure it will. Having said that, we've all got our own sort of worries along the way, but we just have to see how things pan out and learn to trust each other as much as we can. So, just to finish, picking up the metaphor, perhaps, that maybe you didn't make it, about the drama of Gavin and Stacey's Christmas special. Smithy and Nessa got there in the end.
Yeah.
After 17 years, which is maybe a similar time. And we will go through we've had to go through the making of Gavin and Stacey. What's going to happen to Gavin and Stacey? Interview all the people that were in Gavin and Stacey. We're going to go through that process. But don't forget, they got there in the end, and it was a happy ending. That's what I want to hang on to tonight. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. And Councillor Miller-Bone, please.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I do also want to echo my thanks for all the work that's been done by the officers and the leadership, especially over the Christmas period, and I'm sure they're going to continue to work tirelessly for Exeter on this. I appreciate a lot of ground has already been covered, but I did want to add my voice in support of the recommendations. As colleagues have already mentioned, Exeter is the economic powerhouse of the region and continues to grow rapidly, and this means that the priorities and decisions made for the benefit of our city and residents can often be different from other parts of Devon, who have different opportunities and challenges. So it's right that we should have decisions for Exeter made in Exeter. A unitary authority for Exeter would allow us to make the most of the opportunities offered by devolution, allowing the council to drive growth and better deliver public services. There are still a lot of questions about what exactly this would look like and how the unitary authority would shape up, but make no mistake, change is coming. In a few years, this council will cease to exist in its current form, and the roles we've been elected to serve in for our residents will be very different. Our job as councillors is to make sure that the change of governance brings the most opportunities and benefits to Exeter and our residents, while also being mindful of ensuring that the new system is able to deliver for our neighbours and Devon as a whole. We now have a huge opportunity to take the first step and get this right.
I believe a unitary authority for Exeter is right for my residents in Pinhoe and for the city, so I'll be wholeheartedly supporting the recommendations tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fulham.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Firstly, I want to say that I'm on the second series of Gavin and Stacey, so thanks for the spoiler, although I can see it. I might follow my more colleague, but not on that basis, okay. What I would say is there's a handful of us in this room who were involved with the process in 2009, I think we picked up some experience from it. So hopefully this adds value to the debate in terms of where we go forward. The first thing I'll say is I was a sceptic at the time, Councillor Edwards took the leadership role for the Council as a whole because the Council as a whole was in favour of a different position. So it can't cross party lines, very much so. We all took different positions in a respectful way, and rightfully he took leadership of that role while I carried on leadership of the Council at the time. On this occasion, I will be supporting this motion, and I heavily caveat that because I think the word Exeter is doing some heavy lifting for me. But the importance of this motion, this recommendation, is that the flag needs to be put in the ground as a counterpoint to what Devon County Council is seeking to achieve in terms of providing an oven-ready solution to the Minister that would be very tempting to go forward with. So the Minister needs to know there is different perspectives in Devon which need to be considered. And that's the basis on which I am supporting this motion. Now, a few points. As we mentioned by a colleague, devolution is not devolution, it's centralisation. Whether this new unitary authorities, whatever they might look like, get powers cascaded down to them, I'll wait and see. But there's a very deep, entrenched centralising tendency. And we all know, as we sit in council meetings, that we've always got an officer not far from our shoulder saying, I know you want to do that, but you can't because this law, that law, this regulation, that regulation, this overarching authority will overrule you and charge you a fortune for your residents in the process. And we'll have to wait and see if those levers are taken off. Mention was made of us as district councillors getting county council issues. Absolutely true, frustrating as it is. But I think the danger of this process will be to dilute the number of councillors per head of population. If all of Devon, for example, was one unitary and they had 100 councillors, that would be a 10,000 to 1 ratio of councillors to residents. And what I would say is the residents wouldn't have a councillor to speak to. So rather than actually getting straight to their unitary councillor, they would be a remote councillor. They'd probably put a web form or something, or ring some line and get through. Because we, as district councillors at this scale, connect with humans, whatever party we are, connect with humans, and humans connect with us, and they know Laura, and they know Phil, and they know Kevin, and they know Adrian, and they ring us up because they know us. I just think diluted democracy is going to lose that connection. It's not going to create a better connection in that sense. So localism is very important to me. I'm a Liberal Democrat. I started politics in this party. It's not the easiest road. I had many bumps along the way and lots of time sitting on the sidelines. But democracy is exceedingly important to me, and localised decision making is fundamental to good governance, I think, in connection with the population. Now, if I could draw on some of my experience with Pete Edwards. We had Pete Edwards, of course, a Labour Party member. We had Tony Blair and Gordon Brown for many years looking at the Exeter case. We had Ben Bradshaw, Minister in the Blair government. So we were very well connected, or so we thought, back in that process. But those who remember back knew that the Minister took a lot of convincing. And it went a long way through the Labour government before they, as a final act almost, their parting shot, if you like, was to say, OK, we can have it. And then weeks later, a coalition minister decided to turn that around and say, no, you can't have it. But it was not a straightforward process because there was a lot of resistance. And I'd like to think that the leader of the council was very well connected to Jim McMahon and the ministry, and he's got some assurances that we can probably deliver a unitary on a small scale as an exceptional situation. I suppose my experience would be that the Minister is not going to be taking any notice of any words said in this chamber tonight. They'll be filtered through in a very brief way, probably from an officer, from a civil servant, to say that Exeter had expressed an opinion There you go, Minister. And that would be going down to that situation. I don't think they give the granularity of attention to these issues. He's going to be dealing with a lot of areas and a lot of noise. And if there's a lot of noise, there'll be a finger in the ear, give me a solution. And where do we go from there? That's the risk of government making. I've not got great experience of it, but when we had transport issues, the infrastructure of the ministries are not huge. They have a small number of people making a small number of decisions, and they don't drill down to detail necessarily. And I'm just concerned that any exceptionalism we're looking for Exeter will be lost in the wash, because it's explicitly said in there, 500,000, and I'm just mindful that if he starts making exceptions for this city, that city, the other city, it's going to undermine the entire premise of where they're coming from. And I'd like to think we have an authority of a human scale, very much so. That's why I'm supporting this motion. But I've not got confidence that's going to carry through to the Minister in the simpler solutions, which is why I come to the issue of boundaries. We're not talking about boundaries today, but I'm a bit concerned that the very extra focused, and we are extra, and this is our role as an Exeter City Council, but we need to be looking wider. The question we have, do we go all out for a really tight extra boundary? And you're absolutely right about the fringe of the city. We've outgrown our boundaries as a city. Exminster, Houses, Pinhoe, Broadclist Way, all these areas, they look to Exeter, they feel like Exeter. The travel to work area is 500,000 people, okay? That's the sort of what we need to be looking at. But this is under duress, because I'm thinking if we say we hate this, we're voting against everything, we're going to give them Devon County Council, and that's a disaster, because it's just, that's a small country, okay? That's not local government in any sense of the word. It's regional at best, it's not local government, and it'll be a complete diluted disaster. But we do need to speak, and we need to provide, ultimately, Exeter in a city-state sense, perhaps go back to BC times, in the sense of looking after curtilage and having an economic area, a broader area, is something we have to look at. And that means we need to work with the likes of Exeter, the likes of Northampton, or wherever it goes. But we need to, I think, ultimately go to the Minister and say, here is a cut map of people who agree, and we need to get consensus. I think that's a massive task. I'm not convinced it's achievable. I hope it's achievable, but we need to have those conversations. And it's good that you're acting on behalf of the districts now. It's a good start, but I think we need to have good inclusive language, and also mindful that if we're going to incorporate other areas outside the city, we need to be very careful that there's any unitary talk has a subsidiarity concept underlying it, about those areas having as much power and control over their local communities as possible, as much as we want control over ours in the context of Devon County Council and beyond. So hopefully we can make progress. I'm supporting it at this stage. I hope that approach is taken. I'd like to support it further, but wait and see on that front. Thank you, Lord Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Fulham. Councillor Reid.
Thank you so much, Lord Mayor. All these nice now to be extremely brief, with no repetition, no amplification, no hesitation, and no deviation, and added amplification. I'll be supportive of these recommendations and plan to vote for them if we manage to vote before midnight. The two-tier system definitely doesn't work. It's about as good an idea as a smoke alarm with a snooze button. I've got one plea. Collaboration is of course key in terms of how we're going to carry this forward. And I've got one plea, which is when we look at boundaries, that we think about natural boundaries as well. And we think about, for example, our rivers, and we look at catchment areas, and we look to involve all stakeholders who have expertise in this area. So all stakeholders like the Environment Agency, the West Country Rivers Trust, all of these bodies who have huge expertise to bring to this. So I really, really hope that we can do that, because we are very much invested, all of us here, in ensuring all our constituents and the constituents of Devon have a voice. But nature doesn't have a voice, our rivers don't have a voice, and so we need to make sure that we're providing that for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Harding.
Yeah, thank you, Lord Mayor. I had so much to say, but I'm down to 2 points now. Usually say it. I also would like to echo what other people have said, that how grateful we all are for the work that's been done. We've got a letter going in tomorrow, which is great news. But the 2 points, we're here tonight to debate not whether it's going to be a unitary authority, but whether it's going to be maybe a Devon-wide one or more one based on Exeter. So we just have to make the case for why Exeter is going to make a better unitary authority than Devon. And 2 things spring to mind for me. Firstly, where my ward is, west of the Exe, where I would say, I think over the last 10 years, there's been no money spent on active travellers or any new cycle routes or anything. And I think that would be hard to believe or see that happen if the decisions for that were being made by members who actually knew the area and were more local. So I think that's one thing. And the other thing as well, and while this is said with no disrespect to people that don't work, residents want to elect people like themselves. And I think the Devon model of where councillors are spread out across the whole county makes it much harder for people who are working to get to meetings, whether that be during the day or the evening. So I think having a more compact unitary, like we're suggesting here for Exeter, makes it much better for people who work, who can still come to those meetings. And yeah, that's it. So I will be voting for the proposal. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wardle?
A lot of points already been made, so I don't intend to duplicate them. The status quo is not an option, it seems to me, and it's not remotely like the situation in 2010, and as Councillor have said, there are some of us that were there at the time and remember some of the stuff that went on with that. But it just seems to me that, taking an overall view of this, that we're in a key moment in the civic and political history of the city. It really is unthinkable that we would lose limited self-governing identity. On the contrary, we should increase the powers and control of our own local government and the future. And for that reason, I ask you to support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wardle. Councillor Powell?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Speaking as a new member, it has really been uplifting and affirming to find myself working collegiately with members across these benches and political groupings, pulling together in the best interests of Exeter, truly having, in the words of Joe Cox, more in common than that which divides us. Exeter is the brilliant alternative, connected with our coast and our estuary, our rivers and our rural environment, as well as our national and international connections. Our councillors do pull together cross-party to navigate the constraints and the challenges to ensure Exeter will have a prosperous local economy, be healthy and active as a city, housing our residents, building great neighbourhoods and communities, striving to protect our green circle, to be a net zero carbon city, and with a thriving culture and heritage. We are gathered here in this historic Guildhall, having been democratically entrusted by the people of Exeter to be the custodians of the past, the present and the future of Exeter. And I do urge all members to support the recommendation in front of us together to take our city forward as a unitary Exeter, an ambitious environmental leader and growing economic driver in a likewise thriving Devon and Cornwall peninsula.
Thank you, Councillor Powell. Finally, Councillor Asmasim.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. I just, as was mentioned earlier, I do have a letter to give me permission to speak. Thank you, Simon. So I think I have a bit of a unique perspective tonight. I appear to be the only member here who is on both this council and the county council. And I have many, many photos of potholes, and I love them. Seriously, I have a whole collection now. But they can actually be reported online, so it's not too bad, once you can make people do it. But I actually find myself agreeing unusually with Councillor Holland, which doesn't happen very often, who's one of the 3 city councillors sitting over there, who happen to be within my division of St. Louis. And I know for a fact that they find it very frustrating that they have to go through me to get something done for their residents when they could just do it themselves. I think people have lost trust in politicians, and that's not helped when you try and explain to them that your council, be it the city or the county, that they don't do the thing that they're asking you to do. They just believe that you're fobbing them off and trying to get out of doing whatever it is they'd like you to do. Many of the people we have been elected to represent and help don't recognise the difference between the two, or they don't care. Even I still sometimes struggle to know who does what, even after nearly 8 years. So I will be supporting these recommendations as a proud Exonian. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So no other speakers put their hands up, so that's the end of the debate in the sense of speakers. However, there were 3 questions that were asked by Councillor Moore. Leader, would you like to respond to those 3 questions initially?
I will do, Lord Mayor. Is it all right if I just respond to the other points, which is the reference in the winding up as well, and I'll come to this question?
Yeah, of course, you can do it all in one if you wish to.
Thank you. So first of all, Councillor Fulham, bear with us. I will welcome your counsel on this and advice going forward. That's how I intend to work. Councillor Palmer, you keep saying you're new to the city, but as far as I'm concerned, if you live, work, play, or shop in Exeter, you are an Exonian. You are an Exonian as far as I'm concerned. The other thing that I can say to you now is I'm not sure any new unitary authority, you should be lucky to get it, will fill all the potholes right away, but we'll have a very good chance, and I think we will have a better way forward. Councillor Wood mentioned about Pinhoe, and that's quite interesting actually for the historical point of view, and I can remember the St Thomas Rural District Council prior to 1974, and now I know who to blame for all of that. He sat over there. Now, what I'm saying is Topsham, and I lived in Topsham for a while, was outside of the city. Pinhoe was outside of the city. Alphington was outside of the city. You know what? They all feel now they are in the city. They're part of the city. And I think there are lots of people, and I'm not going to get led into saying anything about geography because that will come to haunt me if it does. But I feel sure there are lots of people in and around Exeter feel part of the city or part of Exeter, and we want them to be able to be involved in the decisions that go on in this council. Councillor Rees, you're quite right to draw my attention about the discussions and negotiations, and what I can assure you is, I think I've demonstrated, I know you keep reminding, so you should, I'd like to think I've demonstrated the way that I am working with other collaborative leaders throughout Devon, and I don't know what they say about me behind my back, but I feel sure they appreciate the reputation of Exeter, myself, and the Chief Executive, because we've been honest with them throughout, and I intend to be honest throughout that. Councillor Jobson, thank you for that support that you are saying. You talked about planning issues. Look, all that will be sorted out. You know, look at other models, for example. There's not one big planning committee for Cornwall. They've got area committees. So there are solutions out there that will be looked at. So don't fret about any of that. And by the way, I went to a school whereby there were lots of bullies. I can assure you I was never bullied. I'm not being bullied into anything. The other thing that I'm coming on now to Councillor Mitchell. Well, we've got a little bit political, but what I'll say here, Lord Mayor, this is my glass, and it's half full. You are, Councillor Mitchell, that one's half empty. And that is the trouble that we've got. We've got to stop looking at this from a political point of view and looking at it what's best for Exeter. I know I've got a red tie on tonight, so I'm going to assure you that when we discuss these things in future, I'll leave my red tie and my party politics at the door. This will be about Exeter. So all the references you made about elections and all those other things, you've got a number of Liberal Democrat MPs now in Devon My advice is that you make those references through them in Parliament, where they can talk about when the bill, the white paper, goes through the various committee stages, they can put all those things on. It's the same with about proportional representation. Look, my party has a view on proportional representation. That's not part of the question that's being put to us on this. I feel sure down the line that will come around. There is a view about that. But what we were trying to do here tonight was to talk about what is best for Exeter. That statement that I signed and agreed with the Devon leaders was very important, because they are right. Only if you are fast-tracked, if you've got agreement, that's not there at the moment with the strategic authority. Cornwall has got a view at the moment. Now, what will happen over there? We're not even a month into this discussion yet, since the 16th of December. And just coming back to Councillor Palmer, I heard what you said about the strategic authority, but can you take a look at what its role is? It will not be responsible for emptying the bins, or sweeping the roads, or dealing with how it's got strategic powers up there. So they won't be dealing with what I would call the day-to-day issues, which councillors will be. As to what areas that they represent, Lord Mayor, I take it very seriously as well. I like to think I'm connected with my ward, as indeed every member in this room is connected with their wards. And that will be something that we will have to discuss over the time, of what it looks like, and we will be giving guidance on what the Boundary Commission or whoever's involved in this and what that like. And that will be the time to have those discussions at that time, to talk about appropriateness. So it's very, very important. And so what I just wanted to say also, I remember actually prior to 1968, Councillor Mitchell, there was a borough here called Tiverton Borough. Well, that ended up well, didn't it? Because Tiverton's gone as a borough. It was an independent borough at one time. I was asked a question, I think this was one Councillor Moore, about how we intend to consult. There will be statutory responsibilities for us how we consult, and we will do that. We have a consultation charter. For myself, I will want to go further. I will want to go further, and I will talk about that to the Chief Executive on how we consult in detail. Bearing in mind, I can hear her now saying to me, be careful, leader, you're talking about resources that we've got to find, we've got a big job to do already, so I'm mindful of that. But I can assure all members in this room, we will consult. One, what we're required to, and two, hopefully, and a bit more. As for the elections, as I say, the elections, we weren't being consulted on the elections. The Minister will now have to take a view on what he does about that. And you're quite right, there's going to be a lot of offers in there, a lot of things, and there was a lot of play on that political play this morning. I don't want to get into that. The Minister will make a decision. I would like us to be fast-tracked, to get on with this, because that would end the uncertainty. But the reality of it is, my personal view is, I don't think we will, because that strategic authority has not got consensus at this moment in time. But that strategic authority is so important to be there, and that is why it will be an authority which will be governed in the main by a mayor, yes, but part of its executive, I feel sure, if you follow the Manchester model, is that the leadership teams of those unitary authorities play a role in the executive, for want of a better expression, hold portfolios and do that sort of stuff. That is why it is so important for Exeter to become a unitary authority, and whatever size we are, whatever political party is there running that unitary authority, I will trust them to speak on behalf of Exeter in that mayoral strategic authority on those issues. I will support them. So it's very, very important. So I was asked a question about bringing reports to the next council meeting, or whenever. I've made it clear, and we had a discussion. We've had 2 meetings now. It was raised with me a day or so ago, and And I've asked the Chief Executive, and we've put that in the recommendations to note that I will do that. We've got a choice here. I either come back to the full council every time, or I involve you. I think you would want me to involve you. I am going to do that. I said I will do that. I'm now making a public statement. I will continue to do that. If there is anything of any note, I'm not going to keep it to myself or just you guys. I am going to report it back first to the executive, if there is a need to make a statement. And of course, if there is something to say, I'm going to bring it back to this council. And indeed, it's moving quite fast. Be prepared for extraordinary meetings between now and then. And I suppose as I begin to finally wrap up, I'm trying not to go down the political rabbit hole. We will talk about the finances of this council in February, when we present our budget, and I look forward to seeing the budget you will bring forward, because you've been given all the tools I've got. You've got all those tools. So we'll talk about it then. Let's not try to make political points. Please, I want to work with you on this. I want to be apolitical on this. We're here for the residents of Exeter, for the people of Exeter, and as I've said to you. And I think you can all start working out, get that map and work it out. I like the fact that the southwest area is red. I like that. I do like that. However, I know full well what is the political fortunes of my part. I'm not looking at it from that. I said that in my first contribution, Lord Mayor. If I was, well, this wouldn't be the preferred option. I'm looking at it for Exeter. Please, I think I've covered most of the points. We will work in collaboration. If we can get an agreed solution with the other districts, rest assured I will try to get one. But it could well be that we can't. And you listened to the debate this morning at the County Council. I was getting people from North Devon, Torridge, all making bids to be with Exeter. I'm flattered. However, we will have to sit down, and I will be discussing with this all the time, and I will be working on an agreed solution. I know, Councillor Moore, that the CCA, the foundation CCA, is a failed concept. I know that. I do know that. I know I haven't got a vote on all the strategic points that they would deal with. But I don't think you would suggest for one moment that I stay at home tomorrow at 12 o'clock. I think you would say, go to that meeting, Councillor, represent Exeter and Devon in that council. Because I can assure you, Paul Arnott and myself, representing the Devon districts, are not passive in those meetings, to be quite honest. And I have to be fair to this, to the administration of James McGuinness and indeed Dave Thompson in Torbay. They are approaching it in a collegiate way. They do involve us, they do talk to us, I must say that, and I think that is the best way forward in Devon, to keep those relationships going. It's going to get tough, it's going to get difficult. Whereas I want a solution for all of Devon, on behalf of Exeter, I can't be outvoted by them, because otherwise I will have to do guidance from your good selves on what is best for Exeter, and this chamber, at the end of the day, collectively, will decide on what this looks like when it goes forward. So it's a lot of work for it. It's a good job that we haven't got any overtime arrangements for the directors. That is all within their salary, but I do appreciate the work. I'm not sure Bindu enjoyed Christmas this much. She's done a lot of work. All the officers did. The 151 officers are doing a lot. Guys, we need to be apolitical on this. Let's go together, please. It's for all these things we will discuss. The politics of it, we will sort out. Please support this unanimously going forward for the benefit of Exeter. Let's show, if they're still awake, let's show people, unlike somewhere else, let's show people in Exeter, we care about Exeter, we want the best for Exeter, whatever that looks like, and we're going to work hard.
please support. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you everyone for a thorough debate with well over half of members speaking in the debate. Due to the importance for debate, I do feel that it would be appropriate to have a named vote on this matter. So would everyone, do I have 5 members? I do, perfect. So we'll now move to the roll call. So Mark, would you like to call the roll call?
Thank you, Lord Mayor. Please, when I call your name, please say for, against or abstain. So Councillor Alcock. Councillor Svashin. Councillor Banyard. Councillor Begley. Councillor Bialik. Councillor Darling. Councillor Ellis-Jones. Councillor Fall. Councillor Fulham. Councillor Haig. Councillor Harding. Councillor Holland. Councillor Hughes. Thank you. Councillor Hussain. Councillor Jobson. Councillor Knott. Councillor Millenbaum. Councillor Mitchell. Councillor Moore. Councillor Palmer. Councillor Parkhouse. Councillor Patrick. Councillor Poll. Councillor Reid. Councillor Rees. Councillor Ralston. Councillor Sheridan. Councillor Snow. Councillor Vizard. Councillor Wardle. Councillor Wetnall. Councillor Matthew Williams. Councillor Ruth Williams. Councillor Wood. Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Wright. And Lord Mayor. So I confirm, Lord Mayor, that is a unanimous vote in favour.
Thank you, members. We'll now move on to item 4 on the agenda. I can confirm that there have been no member questions submitted. Everyone will be pleased to hear. So that actually brings us to the end of this extraordinary meeting. So I'd like to declare it closed and thank everyone for their attendance. Thank you.